So in the immortal words of Bender B. Rodriguez, I'm back, baby. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Glacial Geek Deep Thoughts Thin Coats with me, Phil the Glacial Geek. I know it's been a long time. It's probably been, 6 months at this, or more than 6 months? Probably early, or beginning of the summer, when I stopped doing these videos for a bit. There was a lot of reasons that added up to that. At the beginning of the summer, some of you may know about this, some of you may not, so I'm just going to say it. May as well. Beginning of the summer, I had I kind of hit a wall. I was burnt out. I was doing 2 full battle reports a week, and I was doing the deep thoughts every week, and it became too much to try to keep up with all of that was going on. The fact that I was trying to do all of this while still, living my life became very, very difficult to do. Trying to keep up with the recording schedule and trying to get people to film with me that much, it meant that every time I would go on a vacation or something like that, I would have to do a lot of work to try to get it all worked out, and it became a bit much. It became overwhelming, especially when I had a family vacation that was coming up soon, and just the prospect of trying to get that all taken care of before I was going to be gone became too much, and certain circumstances came up, and I missed one deep thoughts, and it became easier for me to just not do that for a bit. So I became overwhelmed. I couldn't keep up with all of it. I mean, doing 2 full battle reports a week may not sound a lot, but when you think about the fact that if I'm then going to be gone for a week for a family vacation, that means that I have to have the battle reports for that week done, filmed and edited. I also have the battle report for the following Monday filmed and edited, let alone all the ones for the week leading up to it. So trying to keep up with all that became a bit much to do. But then, as the summer started to go on, I started to get back into the stride of things. Kill Team was coming out, which is a lot easier for me to put out content for, and I started to get into a rhythm that I felt like I was going to be able to keep up, and that I felt was going to be strong and effective. So I felt better about things. Everything seemed to be going well. And then in early August, my brother passed away suddenly. It really hit me pretty hard. It still affects me to this day. I'm still trying to grasp about going on with my life post all of this happening. It's not easy. I'm not gonna lie. Some days are better than others, but the fact is, it really hit me hard, and it knocked, all the wind out of my sails. I had no steam going forward, and I know a lot of you knew about it, and I really, really appreciate all the support that kind of came out from you guys helping me and letting me know that you're there for me, and that to understand that that I could take the time to try to get myself back into a better place. And it took me probably a bit longer than I expected, but hopefully this will be going forward back into the swing of things, trying to get back into it. I'm hoping to make 2019 a really good year for the channel, both with the content that I put out and everything else that's going to go along with it. So, I know I've said before that I have big ideas for what I want to happen, but I do have big ideas for what I want to happen, and I want this to keep going forward and growing and expanding. I really appreciate the audience that I have with you guys, and I really appreciate being able to do what I do. And going forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it easier on myself, so putting less pressure on myself to make things exactly perfect, while still trying to maintain the schedule that you guys have all grown to want. So for instance, I had planned on doing this video today and filming this video today, and part of what my plan was, I was working on building a knight that my other brother had bought me for Christmas. And I was like, this will be perfect. I'll be able to build it, and I'll prime it, and I'll be able to do the base coats while doing this deep thoughts thin coats. Life has a way of being annoying and getting in the way, and I wasn't able to complete it. And part of me was like, well, if I don't have anything to paint, what can I do? And I figured you guys would rather have a deep thoughts without a thin coat than have nothing at all. So I'm going to be trying to keep myself from getting in my way, so that things may not be perfect the first time I try it. Things may not be perfect every time I try it, but I'm going to try it regardless and try to keep it going, so that I can at least keep doing this and keep building and try to build up a lot of momentum going into this year for the Glacial Geek, because you guys are really awesome. I love the audience, like I've said, and I really think that it could be something big and really awesome. I think that I feel like, personally, I feel a drive to make this happen. I feel a drive to make this kind of content, regardless of, sometimes it's tougher than others. Some days I wake up and I just, you just don't feel like doing it. And if it's just a hobby, then that's okay. But if I really want this to be something bigger than a hobby, then you kind of have to, put on your pants, buckle up your belt, and just get to it and do it. And that's what I'm going to try to be doing. So that's why I'm going to try to make this thing a weekly thing. But at the same time, I'm also not going to try to kill myself over it. So there may be times that I might be out of town for a vacation, or I'm out of town for whatever it might be. In which case, there will probably be some times when I might miss a Deep Thoughts Thin Coats, because it's harder for me to film those really far ahead of time than it is a battle report. So understand that that's kind of the median that I got, the middle ground that I got to in my own brain to make sure that this could happen, is that I'm going to hold myself responsible to making this happen, and I'm just going to do it. But at the same time, if things come up, I can't beat myself up over it, because that led down to a dark path that burnt me out. It just burnt me out trying to beat myself up over it and trying to make it happen. And I think what's going to happen going forward is that I will be more forgiving of myself, but at the same time, still try to put out the content that you guys want to see, because I want to put it out there. So that's a quick update, I guess, kind of on where the Deep Thoughts have been, and hopefully where they're going to be going. They're going to get back to doing a weekly thing, like I said, and make this happen and make it into something bigger, hopefully. And I think that would be pretty awesome. Along those same lines, a little bit of an update on the Glacial Geek here. I think 2019 is probably going to be the year of the year of the cult for the geek. I think that for LVO coming up, it's too late. The Codex didn't come out in time, so I'll be running some variation of my Dark Angels for that. But at the same time, I think past there, going into future things, so maybe into ATC or Nova again, I'm hoping to go back to, and various other tournaments that I go into. I think 2019 is going to be, competitively, I'm going to be looking at my Genestealer Cult, because I freaking love the models. I love the army. I love the lore behind them. I mean, that's why I choose armies, that's why I'm running Dark Angels as opposed to Ultramarines, is because I like the lore behind the Dark Angels better. That's why I'm running Genestealer Cult as opposed to Eldar, because I like the lore of the Genestealer Cult. I think they're cool. I think it's interesting. I like the idea of this insidious uprising that rises up and then at the last moment realizes, oh, poop, we messed up. We're just going to become part of the same consumption to the four-arm emperor is just going to consume us just as much as it's going to consume Steve the autocrat. So I just find that really kind of interesting and tragic and awesome. And not gonna lie, the models look fantastic. I think that the Abominant is one of my favorite the best looking HQs out there. The concept of aberrants is just so cool. These hulking beasts that just start pummeling things in front of them mindlessly, while being controlled by the Magos and the Patriarch is just super cool, super cool. And the aesthetic, the mining aesthetic, combined with the almost the traitor aspect of the PDF that get infiltrated by the cult. It's cool. It's really cool, and I'm excited about going forward, being able to delve into that. As a lot of you saw at Warzone Atlanta this year, I actually was lucky enough to win an Astra Militarum army, basically an entire army. It's a bunch of tanks, flyers, and units and stuff. And I'm super thankful for them for having put that out there, even as a possibility for me to get. And I'm going to be going forward, trying to build those along with my Genestealer Cult, so that you can see just the combining them all and just having it interesting should be fun. I've also got some models from the Deathstorm box set that came out years ago. That was the Space Wolves it's Blood Angels versus Tyranids. And I had split them because that's when I first was thinking about doing an army other than Dark Angels. And one of my friends is a Flesh Terror army, has a Flesh Terror army, and he wanted to have that half. So we both bought halves, both bought the box, and I got the Tyranids thinking I was going to start a Tyranid army, and then Genestealer Cult got leaked, and I was pretty excited about that, so I did them instead of Tyranids. But I've got a bunch of them in there from there, so I've got some Carnifexes, some Warriors. You've already seen the Genestealers from it, so that might end up being another side army, a small force, sort of like what I'm doing with the Blood Angels and what I'm doing with various other things. I'm really excited about expanding my Knight army that I've got going on. My brother, like I said, my brother Andrew, he bought me the Valiant, the Knight Valiant, which is really exciting. I'm excited about being able to harpoon things with my fist. So I think that's going to be fun running him. You've seen the Castellan, and you've seen the my Gallant. You probably saw him on the mini wargaming when I went to mini wargaming with them. But I have a battle report coming up that will have the Gallant in it, so you can get a better look at that. But so that's what I've got going on. That's what's going to be expanding. I'm going to be building and painting my Knights. I'm going to be building and expanding my Genestealer Cult and trying to figure out how to make them an effective fighting force going forward. Because I've heard, from what I've heard, it sounds like the playtesters really want to make the Genestealer Cult Codex a standalone codex so that it can be used, as opposed to just being sprinkled into Tyranid lists and sprinkled into Astra lists. The predominance is going to be Genestealer Cult, which is how I like to run lists. Like how I like to run armies is that, you have a core. And I think that allying in things, like I said, allying in some Blood Angels to my Dark Angels, or a Knight into my Dark Angels, or whatever else it is, I think the ability to do that is fun and exciting. It keeps things fresh and makes things fun to play. And it's very fluffy to be able to do that. And I think it's the same thing with the GSC. Like there are moments when the spore pods start dropping down, that the Tyranids are fighting alongside the GSC until they fully overthrow the government, and then the Genestealers are like, all right, well, now you're going to be second breakfasts. And then they consume them. Or vice versa, where with the Astra Militarum, how they're like, the overtaking units, but then there's also probably points when they realize, oh crap, our Patriarch just bit the head off of our Magos. Maybe this isn't going to end the way we thought it was, and they start working alongside the local the Imperial forces there to try to fight back and try to save themselves. So I just like that. I think it's going to be fun going forward doing that. So that's the updates for the Glacial Geek here. Like I said, this is going to be a weekly thing, and hopefully it'll be able to keep you guys more in touch with what's going on with me. I know I've been really reticent about saying anything about Deep Thoughts Think Codes for a while, because I didn't know. I didn't know what I was going to be doing going forward. Like I said, I was burnt out for a while, and I kept telling myself week after week, I'm like, next week I'll do it, next week I'll do it, next week I do it, and it never happened, because I just wasn't, I couldn't. I was burnt out, it wasn't happening, and the fact that I didn't just allow myself to say, listen, put it on the back burner for a while, regroup and come back at it when you can. I didn't do that, and because of that, I think I put myself under a lot more stress than I should have. And then once my brother passed away, I just couldn't think about it, and I couldn't think about doing anything. The best I could do was just get back into doing battle reports, because that I could just kind of tune out a bit more than I can with these, and I could just follow along, because the rules are rules. You just do the rules and you play it, and you play the game, and the dice will tell me kind of how to react. So if I roll well, you're hearing me woo. If I roll bad, you get a fill face. It's easier to do that than to try to sit here and think about a cogent thought and make it a cogent expression for all of you guys to understand and enjoy. So it's not just a bunch of gibberish. But so that is the update. That's where we're going to be going forward. I know I've said that about 3 times at this point, but getting into the crux of what I'm here to talk about today, I want to talk about, along with this, that we have what's in the future for the Glacial Geek, and we go into a new year, 2019. I kind of want to talk about what happens going forward. What I think, I've got approximately zero insider information on this, but what I think GW is going to be doing going forward now into 2019 and beyond. We've all heard that Games Workshop doesn't call this 8th edition. They call this Warhammer 40K. That's it. It's just Warhammer 40K. It's not 8th edition. They're not thinking of this in editions anymore. So I think going forward, what you're going to see is that you're not going to have the turnover in codexes going forward. And because of that, I mean, they can't just not put anything out, they'll fall. That's just not a successful way to run a business. But I think that things are probably going to change, and in a way that I am excited about, more so than what it had been. Where you would get one codex every couple years, and that's what you. If you're running Dark Angels, you got your codex in 6th edition, and you dealt with it, and then you got your codex in 7th edition, and you dealt with it, and that was it. Those are the two things that you got that came out. I think towards the end of 7th edition, I think Games Workshop discovered a new route to take when they came out with the Gathering Storm books and the Curse of the Wolfen and the Mont Ka books, where they could create campaigns and stories that were going and pushing the narrative forward, because that was something that a lot of people complained about, that we would have always been stuck at 3 minutes to midnight for years and nothing got moved forward. The lore was kind of stalled, and towards the end of 7th edition they changed that. It started, I think, when they changed it with regular Warhammer, when they blew up the old world and pushing the story forward there to create the Age of Sigmar system. But in 40k, they started to do that with the awakening of revert Gilliman, with the blowing up of Cadia, all these different things that they had pushed the storyline forward, made things change, and in so doing, they allowed themselves more routes for narrative discussion, and with that came gameplay mechanics. So you had new models that came out. So Gilliman came out. Voldus came out. You've got all of the Ynnari that came out. You had Celestine came out with a new model. You had a lot of these new models with these new stories that were doing cool things that people were super excited about. So the Triumvirates, people snatched them up real quick. And the books, the Mont Ka, the Curse of the Wolfen, what they would do is they would have within them access to new units or new rules, new game mechanics, and it was super successful. I mean, they were basically just printing money with those books, and they sold out. They did wonderfully for the company, and I think going into 8th edition, they understood what that meant and what that could produce, and that's why I think when they started fresh, and they're like, 8th edition, this new edition is just going to be a whole new edition, wiping the slate clean. We've got none of the backlog and the luggage that came along with the 7 other editions before it. Everything's new. Everything's going to start from the same starting point, and we're going to, I guess it ended up being probably almost 2 years, they'll have a codex for every single army that came out eventually. So they said everyone had their rules and their indexes, and then that would tide you over until they could finally get everything out. And they've been pumping out codexes, faster than most people can keep up with, because they wanted to make sure that people got their codexes. And I think with GSC, you're going to see, I guess, with Sisters coming out at the end of the year, but that was, I think, more of a surprise to them than necessarily even to us that came about. But with the Genestealer Cult, you see the last of the core codexes that are going to be coming out. So that's going to be coming out soon. I would imagine in the next month or so, you'll see the new codex come out. And with it, it's going to be coming a ton of awesome looking models. And I think that's probably it. And this is, again, it's coming from zero insider information. But to me, it makes sense that that's going to be the last big drop of a release, because it's going to be coming out with a ton of new units, a bunch more options for the army, and with that, I think that might signal the end of those big drops that they're going to be doing. I think going forward, they see a lot of benefit from putting out the box sets, so that they had the Tooth and Claw or Wake the Dead. Those box sets were very popular. For good reason. There's good deals there if those are your armies. It also gives you good opportunity to expand what armies you have, trading, both of you and your friends splitting a box, or both of you buying a box and splitting it off. I did that with Forgebane. I did that with Overkill. With Death Mask. Sorry. So I've done that before with boxes, and I think it's super effective. I mean, people love it. Getting all those things, and going forward, I think that you're going to see more of those happening, probably with a bit more regularity than they had been. I also think that you're going to be seeing a lot more of the Gathering Storm-esque kind of releases. So you'll have a book that'll come out with a campaign. It'll have new rules inside, and along with that, it'll have data slates for new models that will come out. So you saw that with Vigilus that they're starting out, and I mean they basically took their hand on it with Vigilus. Where it's like, we've started this campaign, and there's going to be a campaign going forward about the battle for Vigilus, and with that they came out with the new Primaris Calgar, and they came out with that Dubro with the what's his face? I can't remember. You know, the guy with the spear that's like jumping through the air. Super cool, amazingly cool, awesome looking models, and you can get their data slates in Vigilus. And along with Vigilus came rules for other armies and ways to play your army in different ways that weren't broken, that were just interesting ways of making it do it. And I think that is going forward the way they're going to do it, so that none of these books are going to be required for you to do it unless you want to run the models, unless you want to run the formations in there for fun, but you could still keep playing with your Codex without any of these expansions if you so desire. You know, there's no one out there that's saying that, you know, I haven't heard a single person say that Vigilus purchase is a necessity for anyone to take, unless you want to do the new missions, unless you want to follow the story, unless you want to have access to these new formations that they're not like the formations of 7th edition, where if you weren't running them, you just weren't effective, you weren't competitive. You know, I think that's the way they're going to keep doing it, because GW has obviously has an eye on balancing the game more so now than they have in previous editions, which you see with the FAQs and bringing back chapter approved, where they're trying to find a happy medium, balancing things so that all of the options in your army are viable. It's just up to you how you want to play them and how you want to do them, as opposed to, I think in 7th edition there were definite things that you took and there were definite things that you didn't take, and you had to run these formations, and if you didn't run those formations you were instantly at a disadvantage. And I don't think they liked that. I think they saw that as a negative, and I think the community as a whole saw that as a negative. You know, the salt that was piling up at the end of 7th edition was almost too much to deal with, honestly, from my perspective. And I think going into 8th edition, they've done a great job of trying to find balance in the rules. The fact that, you know, you have people who the points changes that they've made to a lot of these armies, you see a lot of people that are both angry that they got changed and angry that they didn't change them enough. And I mean, if you're pissing off both sides of the argument, I think you're probably finding where it should be, so that the people who really want to run them are upset that they're not as OP, and the people who aren't running against them think that they're still too OP. I mean, I think you've found a happy medium at that point, so that if you actually looked at it from an objective point of view, that you reach that happy medium where it's like they don't want to make any unit unusable. You know what I mean? So for instance, if you change the points of guardsmen to cost the same as a space marine, you'd never see Astromilitarum played. That's not what they want to do. You know, they just want to make it so that if you're going to take it, you pay for it. You know, and I think the way they've balanced it out here, I think they did a good job. They also dropped down the AdMech prices so that I see people dropping the Loyal 32 from their competitive lists, and they're thinking about taking some AdMech stuff so they can mix in, you know, some of those angry robots that they got and different things like that. And they've just got the base 3 troop choices and a cheap HQ, 2 cheap HQs to get their CP, which is fine. You know, I think that works, and it creates something interesting, I think. And I think it'll be fun to see it going forward. I think they've done a great job with all of the different codexes that they've come out with. I think they've made them effective and competitive. I think that in releasing these codexes, they've made it so that nothing is an auto win anymore, and I think that's awesome. I like that, seeing that going forward. You know, if you look at the top 10 in a lot of these tournaments, you see some of the same lists, but they're not all the same ones at the same top ones, which is cool, which is interesting. That means that you're finding something, you're finding this happy medium that things work with. And I think that's what they're going to be doing going forward, is going with these campaigns that bring in new, interesting facets to the way the game is played, with new rules, new stratagems. Stratagems, I think, is probably going to be the way forward for them to adjust things and play with things. Because that's basically those new formations that you have. That's the big difference, is you have access to new and interesting stratagems by paying CP to have access to them. And I think that's going to be a fun, interesting mechanic to see how that plays out going forward. I think that's going to be fun, and I think that's the way they're going to do it, because I think these campaign books were the way forward for their company at the end of 7th edition, and I think going now into 8th edition, post-codex period, I think for the first part of this, they had to focus only on the codexes, because the faster they could get them out, the happier the players would be. And now that they've got all of these codexes out, I think going forward, you're going to see a lot more going forward with Vigilus and whatnot. So it should be pretty interesting to see how it happens. And I think that's the best way that you could go forward, is keeping it as a living rulebook, so we don't see a 9th edition making everything invalid once again. I think it'll be interesting to see it going forward, that you'll have changes to your army, you'll have access to adjustments to your army through chapter approved, through these campaign books, and it'll make things fun and interesting. And at the same time, it means that you're not waiting for 2 years to get a big dump of models to change up your army, possibly. I think what you'll see is you'll see things going forward where it's like, all right, we're going to be doing this campaign, and suddenly, oh, look, Space Marines have access to Calgar now. Oh, the Chaos Space Marines have access to this cool jump pack guy. I think the next iteration, you might see an Abaddon come out. They're talking about, the War Master is coming, and they had the timer that started. Was it right in the new year when they said 40 days he'll be here, when they had the release with Harkin? Whatever he is, the guy, jump pack speary guy. And they said he'll, the War Master will return in 40 days. I would imagine you'll probably see a release in 40 days that will have that on there, which is have something in there with the War Master, which will be fun and exciting. So that's my take on it. That's where I see it going forward. I'm excited about it. I like the idea of not having to learn a whole new edition every couple of years. I think sticking with this edition that seems fun, it seems balanced. It doesn't seem, it's simplified to a point that it takes away a lot of the gray issue areas that you had with whether or not a model was, all the different things they changed. So taking away the scatter dice and the arguments over which, like, if you were holding the measuring tape at the right angle, how many, with the templates, like how many models are actually underneath the template, all of that gray area got taken out now. And I think that because of that, it streamlines the game. Same thing with firing arcs, it just streamlines the game. Can you see it? You can see it. You can shoot it. Are you on terrain? You got cover. All these different things that it takes away a lot of that judgment call that would always pause things. So it may not completely blow up a game, but it would pause things and it would make them more difficult. And I think that 8th edition, being more streamlined like this, has more legs to keep going as the basis for them to experiment and expand on with their different campaigns and with their different models going forward. So that's what I think. That's what I think the future of GW is, from someone who is not in GW and someone who has no context in GW. That's what I see them going forward, just because. And I think they tip their hands a bit, I think, with the Vigilus, because the Vigilus campaign is pretty much a copy and paste of what they did with the Gathering Storm, where it's like you have a new release of a couple models along with the rules in this new book, and I think that's what they're going to keep doing. And I think it's effective. I think it's fun. I think everyone thought it was cool. I'm sure everyone wishes that they had their own box that came out, and I think that going forward, there will be a box there for everyone, so that they can release models on a more gradual basis, so they don't have to wait until they have like a whole bunch of models to drop. I think the ones for the Genestealer Cult, the reason that they're making this big drop with all these new models is because they're trying to flesh out the line of the Genestealer Cult so they're effective, like a fully fleshed out army. Because at this point, you've got a few Astra Militarum units they can take and a very few other ones that you can do. So that's what I see going forward. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that they're going to be changing up the edition? I know people keep saying it's like, oh, wait for 9th edition now. It's like, I honestly don't think 9th edition's coming. I think we've got 8th edition. It's just going to become 40k, and that's what you're going to have to deal with for ever and ever going forward. Do you think that they're going to be re-releasing codexes with the changes? Do you think that they're going to be starting fresh? Do you think what do you see them doing going forward? Because it's obvious that they have to create new things that people can buy. That's how a company operates. But how they do it and how they go about it can be many different ways. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Keep the conversation going. And again, thank you all for all the support that you've been this last year. 2018 was tough. It was a rough year for me. But going forward, hopefully 2019 will be better. And it's thanks to all of you guys that this can keep happening. So thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a great 2019. So I had a great time. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I certainly have. I have been Phil the Glacial Geek as always. And until next time, have fun.